Dai Li, welcome to the program.
Thanks, David.
Do you share the concerns of the Islamic community we heard there about police laying these terrorism charges?
When the Premier and the Police Commissioner came up with the Act, I question how quickly that decision was made, and was there enough consultation? At the end of the day, David, I understand that the law, police needed that extra powers that they need in order to get to the bottom of the problem and to find out who actually was behind, or if there's anyone behind what that 16-year-old boy did. And living in a very multi-faith, multicultural electorate like mine is so sensitive, and is a very difficult conversation that we must have, and I need to have with my community. I door knock, for instance, around Wakeley just this week for about Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Went around there to check in with people, about 100 homes so far, and a lot of people were shocked by what happened that night. But at the end of the day, because they live in such a multicultural and cohesive and social cohesive, electorate, they did not want that destroyed. We had, people of refugee background living there, people who, new arrivals from Middle East who escape terrorism as well. They are living side by side. So when we talk about, a terror act, we just need to be aware of how that language lands in a community like Fowler and in other areas where there's multi-faith and multicultural communities live side by side.
So you are satisfied now with how police have handled this?
I wouldn't say satisfied, David. When police have a lot of power, you are very still concerned. You hope that they're using their power responsibly, and they do it in a way that will ensure that our community still feels safe. And ensure that there is that connection between police and a multicultural community like ours, and that is police are not going to, in the future, abuse any of those extra powers that they have been given.
And you're saying that's what's happened here. Why are you not satisfied with police?
I'm not saying I'm not satisfied. I'm not saying I'm satisfied. I'm saying I'm watching and waiting to see the outcome of the investigation. I'm saying that I would like... Look, the police in our area have had challenges working and connecting with especially the young people in our community. And over the decades, we've had Vietnamese refugee kids from Vietnam, and now we have kids from Iraq and all that are feeling very much disconnected from society in the first place, feeling like they don't belong in the first place, feeling that they can't even connect with their own parents and in the home because they're growing up here. So there's all of these challenges that a community that we have in Fowler. But what we need to understand is that what are some of the work that's being done to ensure that people are feeling that like they belong, that we've got so much uncertainties out there in the world currently. How do they feel safe? Secure in terms of financial safety, food safety, all of that are the challenges that our communities in Fowler are facing.
I understand. But just as a leader in the community, I'm just trying to be clear on where you stand. You did initially criticise police for labelling it a terrorist incident. Were you too quick to criticise?
I think I wasn't criticising. I questioned how did they come to that conclusion so quickly. And I think subsequently I did say, look, if that means it gives them the power to get to the bottom of this and find out who actually was behind it, if there are people behind it, and ensuring that we make people feel as safe as quickly as possible, because many of our communities who've escaped, tyrannical regimes are here feeling like, with that word, what it brings on is that people are feeling, oh my God, terror has followed us now. And that will actually make people live on edge. And following what happened in Bondi, people are feeling, oh my God, this is now going to happen in our community.
And should police, you're saying police should be weighing that sort of flow-on community reaction before they call something terrorism or charge someone with terrorism?
I think they need to be very and I'm sure that they are experts in this area in terms of expert in terrorism, experts in all those criminal activities. I hope that they know what they're doing when they label a criminal act with such a label, and that they will reassure our community as soon as possible to ensure that people who have escaped terrorism from the Middle East, that they feel that they're safe here, that there's no such thing happening here.
Yeah. What about the call from peak Islamic groups for a revision of terrorism laws to eliminate the classification of religiously motivated terrorism from the definition? Would you support that?
Look, I think we cannot deny that we are living in a world where, there are incidents of terrorism, more than incident across the world, and that what happened just recently is a terrifying act. It's in a church. It's in a place of worship. So you can actually understand why people are terrified by that act. However, I think we need to be ensuring that doesn't actually get sprayed right across the community. Those who have the Muslim faith doesn't feel that they're being targeted. So how do we ensure that we are really addressing the problem that happened in the church, and making sure that the young boy who did it, allegedly attacked, the bishop, that it was a lone action, or was it a group of people? We need to make sure that people believe the government is actually protecting us.
I understand that, but would you support changing the definition of terrorism, is the question here?
Oh, David, I'm not an expert in terrorism. I mean, I need to leave that with the, people who are in that field. But we need to include people from the community to engage with them, to get information, consult with them, because are those in the Asia, do we have people of expertise who have different faith, a different cultural background and different lived experience giving that advice within that space? Or are they making the decision from a group of people who are, I have to say, who are mainly, Anglo-Celtic, and making that decision and bringing it out there? Are there different cultural groups within this that expertise that are giving our police that advice? So we need to ensure that people are included.
Awareness. Are you saying that they lack cultural awareness?
Well, I hope that they don't lack cultural awareness, because we're living in a very multicultural community. So therefore, in terms of giving expert opinions, that they have those included, those who come from those lived experiences, cultural background, giving them that expert advice as well.
Let me ask you, you've spoken about the suffering of the Islamic community in your electorate, particularly those with family members in Gaza. Where do you stand on this? Do you support a ceasefire in Gaza?
Oh, absolutely. I think I was probably, the first person to call for a ceasefire. I think that, through my door knock, a couple of women have said to me they said, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about, put aside religious beliefs. Seeing a child being killed, seeing women, innocent people being killed, it's just not something that people can actually, take. It's very emotional for people, and for me as a person who escaped Vietnam and being a child who ran from the war, I can't. It's very traumatic for me. And very traumatic for people in my community. And are you saying a ceasefire conditional on hostages being released, or are you just saying... Look, absolutely. I think hostages should be released. I mean, where is the international community in trying to play a role in making sure that the hostages are released? Why haven't they been released? I don't understand it. Why has this thing continued on for so long? Where has the international community's leaders failed in release and getting those hostages released? I don't get it. And should Australia recognise a Palestinian state, regardless of a negotiated settlement with Israel? I'm not a Middle East expert, David, but I think you are a representative of people with very strong views on this. In Parliament, we have called for a two-state solutions, and I think that's not just us, but it's been for decades now. I mean, Yitzhak Rabin, who got assassinated, called for, asked for a two-state solution as well. So I think that everybody is, from my understanding, would like a two-state solutions. All right. Just coming back to the
the events at Wakeley, do you think the video of the stabbing should be removed globally from the Twitter platform?
What I can say is that if we're talking about violence, we're seeing violence, increased violence in society, we see increased violence against women, and we wonder why. I think the content on social media, and I think that we need to make sure that our young people in particular are not exposed to this kind of violent content constantly, because that is actually influencing them, in particular in this day and age whereby people are feeling so disconnected from their own communities. So I think that I support for that kind of violent content not to be continually shared so much that it influence. I mean, we don't even, you know, we have laws around bestiality and pornography. That's not being shared. Like, honestly, how can we not stop images of violence? Because that is having a huge impact. And we question why there's such a huge increase in violence against women or violence in society, you know. So we need to think about, and Australia should take a stand on that. Now, however, I have to understand that people don't like government controlling content, controlling them, and government has to build a social license now, because there's a lot of mistrust between the people and the government has to really do something to rebuild that trust and build a social license in order for them to take actions in situations like this.
You mentioned violence against women. Would you support a federal royal commission?
I don't know if another Royal Commission would actually, you know, do any good. I think what I think government needs to do is actually getting the funding and targeted that to communities that really are experiencing high domestic violence, and getting it implemented, getting programs, getting education, getting you know, and making sure that we don't alienate one group from another. I mean, I'm a mother of a son. I know that we've got to be mindful of our language, because not all men are violent, but how we are portraying it is that men are violent against women. And how do we include the young men in our society? How do we make sure that they're educated to respect and to work alongside women? And we don't feel like we're kind of saying that they're the bad ones there. You know, what kind of language are we sending out there to young men growing up in this day and age? Targeted program, education, ensure that young boys and young girls work together to know that they respect one another as human beings.
Just a final one, Dai Lee. It's reported you had dinner with Peter Dutton the other night in your electorate. Did you talk about what might happen in the event of a hung parliament after the next election?
No, look, the opposition leader reached out following the Wakeley incident and, you know, asked us to come, you know, to dinner just to check in, to see what any issues that are important in our community. And, you know, I think he's the only one that reached out and come out to see us, and
So the PM hasn't been out there?
He has been out there previously, but in different scenarios. But this time he specifically, you know, rang me up and asked me to come along to see how I was going, and it was very stressful, David. You don't realise how traumatic the whole thing has been for me and for my community in the last few weeks. Talking about trauma, and I still feel it talking to you. It's not something, and unless you live in that community and feel our community, you don't know how challenging it has been for us mentally and emotionally.
Well, our thoughts are with your community. Dai Lee, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, David.